The views and opinions expressed in this podcast by the host or the guest do not necessarily reflect the views of Paranormal Buzz Radio or its sponsors. Use of any material produced by Paranormal Buzz Radio without express written consent is strictly prohibited. For information on everything Paranormal Buzz Radio has to offer, visit our website, paranormalbuzzradio.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Listener discretion is advised.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Paranormal Report. Tonight's episode, we're going to be talking about debunking the paranormal. Debunking your equipment, debunking your teammates, possibly debunking your environment. Let's start by going around the table and seeing how everybody's been. Michael, how you been this week, my friend?
Man, I've been doing all right, just hanging in there, trying to, just stay above ground, breathing, and, just trying to enjoy life, working, but, I really don't have no complaints, I'm in no pain or nothing, so I'm good.
Good, man, good. What about you? What about you, Shane? What's been going on with you, my friend? What's new?
Oh, I've been doing pretty good, just getting a lot of stuff done, ready for winter, and we did some work on the wife's car, and I don't know, just been messing around. Went on a little investigation, I don't know, like a week ago. It was pretty all right. So, yeah, I'm doing good.
Right
Can't
on.
complain.
Right on. And I don't know if Kat is still in here or not. She just dropped out right as we started. So
I'm here.
Okay, we got you back in. Awesome. How's your week been, Kat? What's new with you?
Wow. October is a very busy month with lots of tours and people wanting to see haunted locations. So that's what I've been doing for weeks now. I think I just had 60-something people through Edinburgh Manor yesterday. So,
wow, 60-something people.
Yeah, pretty awesome.
That's pretty awesome, Kat. And you give such good tours, honestly. So,
Absolutely.
I'll have to go on one sometime.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll just have to video call you, Shane, and walk you through until you can get out here. We can do that.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Hey, I'll do that. If you give me your phone or something, I'll just sit in the background on one and just follow you with a phone with Shane on it. I'll be Shane's point of view.
Yeah.
Then you'll get to wander off with me and mess with people.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I know I was doing when she did that tour. Let me tell you, I was videotaping or whatever, and I just so impressive. So just the knowledge that she has and the way she presents, and oh man, it was spot on.
I know, right? We're not even just being nice because we're your friends. It's legit. You do such a good job.
Yeah, that's cool.
If you didn't, I'd pull you aside as your friend and be like, hey, I think you should check some facts or something. You do so good.
Yeah.
Well, I even am not afraid to fact check myself. I made a mistake at one point. I had one of the years off by 2 years, and I've gone back and been like, I'm so sorry that I've told you the wrong info. This is what it really is. My fault. So no problem fixing it.
And that affects someone's whole collection of data. You've just ruined their whole history.
Not an article that made a difference in that sense. But.
How dare you? No, I'm just playing. See, that's the thing. Once you start doing something, you can continuously add to it and get better at it. And then, you just have to start. You just have to get it going.
Right. Well, she's just, she's spot on. And it was a joy listening to her, talk about Edinburgh Manor. It's just, it was great. That's mad respect for your knowledge.
His favorite part was the benches of dolls in the upstairs hallway.
He loves it.
I'm just glad them damn things stayed on the bench for me. That's all I cared about. They was up there, it was on the bench, right? They was in a row, and I'm thinking, ooh, if one of these things fall.
It's going to be like one of those weeping angels. Every time he looks away and looks back, it's like a foot closer.
Yeah,
but it's the little ceramic clown is which one it would be.
Michael's lives are so great. Every time he turned around, I was like, Michael, I think I saw it move a little bit. And he was checking it out. He's like, nah, Nico, quit playing.
I laughed hard on that live.
Oh,
that was a good live.
Well, I just love it, because it's just, I get creeped out. I ain't gonna lie, but I want people to get creeped out with me. They want to see if, why I'm getting creeped out and stuff. And damn, I'm thinking that I was sitting to myself thinking, now, I know it's dark, and I was trying to, figure out my path of, escape, or if I had to go. So
I would love to see that. Oh, that'd be wonderful.
My God, I was figuring out things, man. Because if one of them really would have jumped off, I'd have turned whitish. I know I would have. I would have. I'd have got ashy, and I'd have been like Roadrunner. Because I would be safe, obviously, because it's dark. But I would bob and weave, and I would get out. And I would just keep going.
He said I would bob and weave.
That's right.
Oh, wow.
That's right, man. I don't get that never happened before. I've been scared. To be honest with you, I've been scared, like frozen scared, like to the point where I couldn't move, and that bothered me.
See, I've never had that.
Oh.
Somebody's like, yeah, there's a demon coming up in the floor in the basement. I'm going down them stairs like right now.
Shane's running for it.
Yeah, I'm like, let me see it. I want to check this out. I'll give him the probe, see what he thinks.
Give him the probe.
What data does that collect, can I ask?
I don't know, but I'll let you know when I find one.
All of it.
Oh, no.
That's funny. No,
I was telling Kat when I saw her recently, I made a joke about, I don't care about anything, just touch my sensors and leave me alone. Get out of my room.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I like that. Touch the sensors.
Touch the sensors and go away.
Yeah, no, I know that's right. No, I just like that. The one time I just saw this big old shadow figure behind my friend, and I couldn't move. It startled me because I never thought, come on, it blocked out the light behind her. It blocked out the light. I couldn't see the light.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it did. That's what happened, and I just froze there, and I I couldn't almost hardly speak a little bit, and I asked her, I said, did you feel that? Did you feel that? She said, yes. Mm-hmm. I said, okay, well, it's gone now, but I told her I couldn't hardly move.
Yeah.
See, I want to see cool things like that.
Well, and it was at this little museum in Lamont, Iowa.
Yeah, that's where all the best stuff is, at the littlest out of the way places.
Yeah, so true. That's so true.
Well, and it's unexpected. Like, I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting hardly anything. And then damn. And so, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to ramble, but that was one of my.
Yeah, how dare you talk on a podcast, Michael?
Yeah,
you're getting out of line now.
And then and I think like we were talking about tonight, when we were talking about debunking. We worked on that, like we tried to, like, okay, how could this form?
Yep.
Like we went outside because it is they have a little window, that you can see out a little bit. Maybe a car, did some kind of shadow, some kind of image or something like that. Or so, we went out and, I said, let me just drive by and see if you see anything. Nothing. I mean, we did what we're going to talk about tonight.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay. And so we did all kind of little things to see if we can, like, figure that out or debunk it, and we couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, and it sucks when you start to really rack your brain on what else could that be and why did that happen. And when you really can't explain it in any kind of way at the time, do you categorize it as a paranormal event, and do you try to recreate it later,
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. I get that. Mm-hmm.
But tonight's episode came along because I told my co-host, I was like, you guys, pick what you want to talk about. I want all of you to pick an episode or two. And Shane really wanted to talk about debunking and go into some of the equipment he uses and some of the methods he uses to debunk. So let's let him kind of take it off and lead it. And Shane, what do you do to debunk things, my friend?
Well, I mean, everybody has to at least start with their normal five senses. You have to, go look, if something's happening, rather than, doing Scooby-Doo style run, and leaving. You gotta go up there and say, okay, I just saw something right over there in the corner that did something. Walk over there and find out.
We're gonna start calling it the Michael, Bob, and Weave.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Get out the way.
Get out the way.
And then once you've exhausted your normal human senses, if you didn't figure it out, then it's time to start getting some equipment in there. Hopefully you had a data logger somewhere near wherever the event happened. Go back and review that data, go back and listen to any recorders, check any video cameras, as the first steps, and then get into more detailed things like, okay, I saw a door start to go closed or whatever. Go over there and mess with the door a little bit and see if it does it by itself. Put a level on the top of it. Is it way off and janky? Okay, it might have issues. Or does the latch not work or whatever's going on, so it's the idea is you got to get there right when it happens, better than if you just say, okay, I'll check it out tomorrow. It's like, well, too late now.
Yeah, and that's going to help you.
You could get on a rabbit hole if it worked out good, because you might find more things if it's actually an event that's really happening.
I have a question. Do you actually have a level in your paranormal kit?
Absolutely. I have a level, a tape measure, I don't know, all kinds of stuff like that. Because, it does happen. Sometimes you'll find, like a door, and it can sit there for hours, and all of a sudden it just kind of swings and goes. And that could be just as the house is settling, as it's, it's getting dark and it's getting cooler and things are expanding, contracting, and, okay, the door just did it. But you check the level of the door and it's like, wow, that's not even close. It's, and gravity would make it go the way you saw it go. Well, there you go. You're probably on the right track.
Let me just kind of frame Shane for you, okay? For those of you who haven't met him in person before. The first time I met Shane in person, he had 3 priorities. One was food.
Yep.
The second one, he pulled out a battery tester to where we were about to go, and he tested the quality of the batteries and the voltage in them, and then tested them right when we got back for a log of data of just in case anything drained our batteries while we were there. He's huge into debunking. His kit has evolved over the time, and I personally think you need that to validate what you get in some circumstances, not all.
That's cool.
But that's basically.
I'm
Yeah.
going to go off the rails, Shane.
Okay.
I have a tripwire. I had Nico look at it on Friday. Nico has fixed my tripwire. That's the string of EMF lights. I had a wire issue. Nico fixed it. He gave it back to me with batteries in it. It worked for 2 investigations with those batteries. No issues. I put in my batteries. It's malfunctioning. How does a tripwire know the difference between rechargeable batteries and regular Duracells?
Oh, that's a super easy issue. So, the typical rechargeable batteries are either nickel cadmium or nickel metal hydride.
Okay.
And their typical voltage is about 1.25 fully charged or somewhere thereabouts.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a Duracell or alkaline, any of the better alkaline batteries are 1.5, 1.6. So a lot of equipment thinks brand new rechargeable batteries are already 2/3 down, or down to 2/3.
Okay.
And so they'll run for just a little bit. That voltage goes below, because a lot of devices will say, okay, I'm at 1.1 volts. I'm done. And, if you start at 1.6 instead of starting at 1.2 or 1.25, it might not take those rechargeables very long to get below the threshold, even though they're still technically 3/4 full. So it's just a difference in battery chemistry, and this is common. I typically don't use rechargeables, but it does get expensive if you have to drop 4 to 8 batteries every time you're going on a
And like for me, a flashlight and a rechargeable battery, I don't care.
And a flashlight doesn't matter because it'll just get dimmer gradually, and it don't matter. But a lot of electronics, especially voice recorders, meters, things like that, by the time they're down to 1.1, 1.2 volts, they're considering it dead.
Huh.
or
Right.
they're starting to act erratic. Where in brand new fully charged batteries are just barely more than that if they're rechargeables.
Okay.
You know what? If
So the
you
re-
if you oh sorry, go ahead, Kat.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, if you think about that, I wonder how many times people have mistaken a paranormal incident just for malfunctioning rechargeable batteries. Because these rechargeable batteries, they have many different qualities and types, right? Some obviously better than others. And then they have recharge rates. So if you're like a very active investigator and you recharge your batteries a lot and you cycle them a lot, that's going to slowly decrease over time. And that's going to create false results in your equipment. I didn't know that. That's mind blowing. Sorry, go ahead, Kat. I had to fit that in.
No, I mean,
For
that's
me,
good.
I was like, my tripwire is not working right. I wasn't saying, oh my gosh, I'm getting activity. I'm like, something's wrong. Pack it up. Use something else. But
if you had put new batteries in there, alkalines, it probably had been just fine again.
Yeah, and it is. And so I used it again this weekend with regular batteries as opposed to my rechargeables that I normally use, and it has no issues. I messaged Nico and I'm like, you're not going to believe this when you come over.
Yeah, and I was so
fine.
sad.
It's your batteries versus my batteries.
Because I build equipment, I fix equipment and stuff, and I fixed it. And what I always do to debunk equipment is I test everything at my home, and I run it until it dies. Everything that I ever build or work on. So I fix her.
I do that.
Yeah, that's just good practice to see how your equipment behaves when it dies. And it's a learning thing, too. I wanted to understand how that tripwire works when the batteries start to get low. How does it function?
Well, and that's the other thing is why when I built the sensor board, it plugs in the wall. It runs off 120 volts. And so it can sit there for a week, a month. It don't care. As long as the power's still on, it's going.
Yep.
And so you don't have the gradual changes, because that's another thing that happens. You put fresh batteries in and they're up at 1.6, and then an hour later at 1.5, a couple hours later at 1.4, 1.3, 2, 1, and finally dead. A lot of these things that have a sensitivity or a threshold, that threshold actually changes as those batteries slowly drain. So you might have sat down this motion sensor or something, and you set it so it just at the edge, so if it trips when you move, but then 2 hours later when the batteries have dropped a couple tenths of a volt, it's tripping by itself, on and off and on and off and on and off.
You know what else that would explain too? That may also explain when pieces of equipment randomly malfunction, and then if you let
that's
them...
what I'm saying.
Yeah, you let them sit for a while, and then they start working again, and people would blame that on paranormal event instead of just the batteries.
Just the laws of physics and the typical batteries. If you take the load off of them, a lot of the chemicals start recombining again, redoing the thing, and they'll actually go back up in voltage a little bit. And then you turn it back on, and it works great for a while, but then a little while later, it's messing up again.
Yeah.
So, the batteries are a difficult thing,
Well, and you're right. Like the sensor board that, from back in the day, we got like a power brick, that thing. I mean, I didn't investigate for like a year and a half, you guys who know me personally. And one of them I didn't charge for a year and a half. And when I started getting gear back out and I became a member of Paranormal Exposures, and I whipped that brick back out, and it was still at like 3, out of 5. And I was like, this thing's been sitting in the closet for a year and a half doing nothing. It's still good.
Yeah, but batteries are troublesome. The good fix for it that's kind of annoying is if you have electronic skills is use a bigger battery outside the unit, use a voltage regulator to make it the same as it would be as if all the batteries were brand new, and then hook it there. That voltage regulator will hold that voltage absolutely precisely perfect. So now your instrument, especially if it's something that has a threshold or sensitivity setting, won't change through the entire investigation.
Thank God I have a tech guy.
So
glad I have a tech guy.
So what we've just done is debunked about 99% of the paranormal to faulty batteries.
Well, I mean,
and we've left the 1%
happens.
behind.
That's all the paranormal stuff that's left. That's the real stuff.
Now we
You
are
can't
officially
debunk the
hated.
batteries,
Nobody's
then
going to
there you
listen to
go.
our
It's
podcast
real.
now. You just angered all of the paranormal, Shane.
Oh, well. I call it like I see it.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
I'm
just
super
something-
happy that you have that information. Like, I just, to me, I'm like, I wouldn't have known that.
Yeah,
but
I made a joke about it. I was like, "Oh, Kat, you just got a bougie. You just have a bougie sensor or something." Like I was like, it wouldn't accept her batteries because I was
Right.
really
Yeah.
bummed when I fixed it and tested it for days, and then she
Yep.
puts, and I put in Duracells and it worked perfect. The moment she got it back, put in batteries and it didn't work. I was so upset. I was like, "Why? What's the difference? How?"
Yeah, that's the difference right there.
I had no
at least you
idea.
figured it out. I quit using it because I didn't like how it was working. Instead of going, oh, yay, it's paranormal, I recognized that it was faulty. And so I just like, well, guess that one's done. But
I was writing it
Yeah,
off
but-
to her house ruining it. That's what I always go to. If
yeah, I can't test equipment in my house because my house has stuff happening. And so like it's going to have interactions and things going
Yeah.
on. So.
The interesting, neat thing is nowadays with modern technology, they have these little tiny voltage regulator boards. They're so small that most of the time they'll fit right inside the compartment where the batteries used to be. So then you just solder the wires onto the old battery terminals, leave the little thing in there, and then just have a pigtail coming out of the unit
Yep.
that you can either plug into a bigger battery like a 12 volt or something, or you can plug into a wall adapter if you have wall power. And that instrument will get absolutely precisely the same voltage and will behave the same way.
Oh man,
Wow.
you realize you just had like $1 million idea right there, right? If you upgraded every piece of paranormal equipment in existence with that like $5
Well,
part.
the other thing is they could all share from the same big battery. You had one of those, 7 amp hour gel cells like they go in the little UPSs. You could have one of those batteries and half a dozen devices with a wire coming off of it, each going to its own device. It'd run the whole thing the whole evening, and then you just charge it again the next day, and you're good to go.
Until
Wow.
Michael's running down the hallway with the doll chasing him and he trips on the wires that are there.
Yeah,
because-
well, poor Michael.
Sucking
See,
up all the
that-
energy with his bob and weave.
He'll get up, he'll pull his pants up, and he'll run again.
See, I already mapped out my mapped out things. I
Your
won't be-
escape route.
You got it all
Yeah, I'm
planned.
done.
He
I'm
al-
good with
that's the first thing he does is plans his escape routes for every door and window that he can find. That's a pre-investigation checkout.
I know this is off topic, but have you guys ever had something happen in a location where you actually are kind of scared to go back in and pick up your gear?
Yes.
Not me. Mm-mm.
Edinburgh. At
Yeah.
Edinburgh, I have.
Edinburgh. Yep. I have. Yep. Waverly Hills. Yep.
Yeah, I did it
Was
for Raw once. At for Raw, I was like, I sat outside for about a half an hour, and I was like, I gotta go back in and get my shit.
See, I've never had that. I don't know. I guess I don't get the good experiences or something.
Oh man, it messed me up. It was one of my first times seeing a shadow figure, and until I actually saw it with my own eyes, I thought, oh, people are kind of goofy. You know what I mean? But then once I saw it and I couldn't explain it, I actually kind of got sick to my stomach instantly, and I was like, all right, guys, I'm gonna go outside for a minute and get some air. And it was when we were wrapping up. Everybody was starting to wrap up and leave and put things away, and I was like, nah, I'm not. My stuff was on the level where it happened. I'm like, nah, I'm good. I don't want to.
Oh, yeah,
Wow.
I've never had that. So
Yeah, it sucked.
Damn. That happened to me once with, especially Edinburgh Manor like that. But yeah, not often, but yeah, a couple of times. Yeah, and that's frightening. You going back in there.
Yeah.
You don't want them things to be around you. But
Yeah,
no,
or it just shakes you. You know what I mean?
yeah, exactly, and all that. But the thing about which I found interesting, you talked about the batteries and the different voltage and all that. And it never crossed my mind a little bit about, I always put new batteries in and stuff in my things, But
And
you
that
know,
usually works because if they're brand new and not from the dollar store, 'cause that's the other thing. People
Yeah.
get these freaking Dollar Generals, whatever the heck,
mm-hmm.
cheapo batteries. You know, because here's one thing you can do to determine if you have decent quality batteries or not. So if you have a good battery and you hold it up maybe 10 inches or a foot above a hard surface and you drop it, it will just go thud and just sit there. If it's a cheap battery, it'll bounce because the chemical density is much lower in the cheap batteries, and so they're super lightweight internally, and so when they hit the table, they'll bounce about twice as high. You try it sometime. Take a brand new Duracell or Energizer, one of the good brands, and then take a cheap dollar store battery, and then drop them from the same height at the same time. That dollar store battery bounce about 2-3 times higher than the other one.
And throw it on the ground.
It's just physics.
That's it. Well, God, I'm gonna try that. I mean, that's cool. I didn't know that did that. I mean, thank you.
Just drop it on its end and let it bounce.
Investigators everywhere are going to start throwing their
those,
batteries.
right?
Yeah.
The 9 volts, you're supposed to lick those.
Yeah, you lick those, and that way you can tell if they're full or not.
Don't you get a little shock or something if you do that?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Unless they're dead, then you're good.
Oh, no,
So Denise Flood is in chat right now, and she says she's at home checking her batteries right now. She's throwing them all on the kitchen floor.
Nice.
That's good. That's good knowledge. I never knew that. I mean, I'll have to keep that. You know, I mean, I usually get them at Target or, somewhere, Duracell or whatever. But you're right about that Dollar General. I don't mess with those. I don't.
But it adds up, though, because if you're really gonna, you have to put new batteries in your equipment every time, right? And that's why a lot of people lean towards rechargeable. I mean, if you're going and buying Duracells every time you go on an investigation, if you're someone who goes once a month or something or every now and then, okay. But I know people that are going 3 times a week, every other night, and they, I mean, Kat, what would your battery bill be with the amount of things you attend and go to in a week?
Comment?
Yeah,
I would. That's why I use rechargeables. But for most of the gear, like I said, it doesn't seem to make a difference. Usually, if something starts going off, I'm like, oh, I'm going to check batteries first, and we'll put something new in. If it continues to do that, then we try to figure out okay, is this or isn't this something? Put some other stuff out there. Can you do this too?
Yeah.
Like the other night, we were just on Friday, William and I were at Broadhead Manor, and we had the tripwire out. It was actually working properly with its good batteries. And we had flashlights out, and we had cat balls out, and we had, I know Shane's probably shaking his head at my choices here.
Cat balls are actually kind of entertaining.
Yeah.
But we put all these things out, and they're sitting, and they're dead quiet. And, they were like, hey, if you want us to stay here and communicate, we had REM pods and things also. I'm like, you gotta show us something. Show us that you're here. Let us know where you're at. And a flashlight turns on. We're like, okay, interesting. And then a cat ball on the other side lights up, and it lights up 5 times in a row. And I'm like, crap, I've got one that's dying. So I start walking over to it, and I'm like, I guess I'm gonna pick that one up and swap it. And it stops, and I'm like, okay. I'm going to let it sit a minute. We'll put another one nearby it. The other one lights up. And you're like, okay, so it's not the faulty one that I just left there. The other one's going now. And the next time I walked up, they stopped again. And they normally don't go in a repetition of over and over and over and over. Normally it's you get a hit on it and you're like, I would love you to do that again. And then you spend the next 45 minutes sitting there waiting for something to happen. And it doesn't. But it was interesting. And then the tripwire would get a hit. And then the REM pod started doing stuff. I'm like, that was a lot of things happening in a 45-minute time. And it was inconsistency with what we were doing. And then we have the obelisk going off. And half the time I'm like, the words don't make sense. But they directly were making sense. And I'm like, and I don't always say oh my God, it's all paranormal. I'm like, I'm really curious now. This is, it piques my curiosity. I don't always say oh, we definitely talked to the ghost of George. For me, it's more okay, now I have 50 more questions. on how did this happen? Why did this happen? Why did we get these answers? And what do I do next? And that's why I'm a go to the same place over and over again person.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
because
the best.
I want to be able to like validate. Okay, did we get George again? No, now this time we got, Rhonda. Okay, maybe there's something going on here, But for me, being able to have repetition in a place makes more sense than having a bucket list.
Sure, definitely.
100 places that I want to go and hitting them all once and then having nothing.
Because then you can't test anything. You have to really get to know a location, try to spend multiple days in it if you can at a time, instead of just jumping from one to the other to the other. And then a lot of people don't really go through anything when they do that because it all gets kind of lost in translation. You're not really debunking anything or even going through your data. You have to really learn a location in order to see what happens at night in all the different situations.
Right.
You're in the position where you're at a very popular location multiple times a week, and you get a lot of exposure to it, and that's gold,
One of the cool things is people actually do reach out to me with evidence afterwards, hoping that I can validate or debunk for them. And I really appreciate those people more than because they want to know, okay, how in the world did I get this? One of them recently, and I don't see things in photos 99% of the time. This guy had a photo that I'm like, wow. I'm like, happen to be at the building right now. Let me take a picture of that window for you. I went inside the building and took him pictures inside the room. There's nothing in the window. There's nothing in the room that shows in the window. And so I sent him pictures, and I'm like, I see the face. I see the position of it looking down in his picture, and it's holding something. And I don't know more than that, but wow, I've got another guy that just posted a video. He has some kind of weird light anomaly outside of a window in the basement. Happens to be the same window he had an apparition photo. The only other one that I'm like, that's definitely something. And he's like, if it was a flashlight, you'd have seen it go across the windows in the front. Or if it was a car, it would have done more than just the one window. And instead of him saying, I absolutely have something here, he says, I don't know what this is. And we're going to go back and test it here in November to see, can we duplicate it with specific angles of the light and say, maybe it was this. And I really find a lot of value in that.
We're going to make one of the team members go out there with a flashlight and jump around. No, a little to the left, a little to the right. You have one job.
Just listen.
Do I have to do this? Yes, we're debunking.
Yeah.
It's going to be you, Nico. That's the funny part.
I'll do it. I'll strobe up. I'll get every angle. I'll attract people from the road.
See, the interesting thing is, from a debunking standpoint, that's why it's best to have some kind of data logging equipment, because here was an interesting scenario that I came across recently. I was at an investigation, and it was in this one corner of this bedroom that all of a sudden the EMF meters start going off, the REM pods would start tripping, everything would start going, and we're trying to figure out, okay, but nothing was, couldn't figure out anything where it was coming from. So after I went back and looked at the data from my board, because my board was in that same area because we had kept getting stuff there, and they're all like, yeah, there's something here, there's something here. So I moved the board over there and let it record for about 2 hours. Then I went back and looked at the data while we were still on site, and I realized about every 15, 18, 20 minutes, there'd be this huge burst of EMF. And it would last for 2, 3, 4 minutes, and it'd go away. And then it would be gone for another 20 minutes or so. And, of course, on a graph, when you're data logging, you can see the repeated up, down, and they're exactly spaced. I'm like, well, number one, this can't be paranormal because no ghost is going to precisely at the same amount of time. Well, after a little bit more investigation, we found out, right outside the window in that corner of the room is the big air conditioning unit. Every time that air conditioner kicks on, that big motor in the compressor makes a giant EMF field, and it sets off all the little gadgets. And they keep going off, and it does it. And the other thing is strange is, as the day gets, as the night gets cooler and cooler, it starts spacing itself out further and further and further. So it's, you could see the In the daytime when we first got there setting up equipment, yeah, every few minutes you would get that big spike for a couple minutes, 5 minutes. And then by the time it was 11 o'clock midnight, it was it was like almost an hour between the spikes. But yeah, it's just that air conditioning unit outside the window. And of course you couldn't hear it from inside. It was sitting on a cement pad and the window was closed, unless you were literally had your ear against the window, you couldn't hear it kick on. But it definitely made a big enough plume that every piece of equipment in there registered something. Wow. So, the other one that gets you is like furnaces, water heaters. Somebody's warming up their snack for the investigation, and they're on the other side of the wall from the room you're sitting in, and all of a sudden they kick the microwave on, and half a dozen EMF meters go off, and nobody even thinks anything of it because they don't connect microwaves and EMF meters.
Yeah.
But there's so much man-made crap nowadays,
Low-flying aircraft.
Yes, low-flying aircraft.
Yeah. Emergency vehicles driving by.
Yep.
Anything that has any, like even semis and their communications. Absolutely.
Well, also semis, because they weigh, 70,000 pounds, when they drive on the road, I've seen them vibrate the whole building hard enough to set off a cat ball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially some of these places that are out in the middle of nowhere like that, they can be a decent distance away and
Correct.
Still have that happen. And then, unless you're looking for it or which a lot of people, a lot of investigators starting out, they're not exposed to people like that. It's all about the group you join and the way they think.
Yeah, and the other one that happens is somebody runs water somewhere else in the building, if it's a bigger building, but the pipes go behind the walls or wherever, or under the floor of wherever you're at.
Mm-hmm.
You will get vibration, you'll get noises, you'll get swishing sounds, you'll get, the pipes banging when they shut the faucet off and the pipe gets the immediate pressure from the, you get this thunk, thunk, thunk.
Yeah.
It's like, what was that? And you can never find it because it's inside the floor, or inside the walls, or under the sink, or someplace where you can't get to. Mm-hmm. And, it could be somebody just flushed the toilet downstairs and you're up, you're on the third floor and they got a bathroom up there, and all of a sudden you hear a banging sound on the wall and you're like, oh, what was that? Yeah. You have no idea that they did that in the basement.
Yeah, because everybody who investigates brings like a giant buffet with them, I swear.
Yeah.
Everyone's got these like horrible road snacks, and everybody's...
I've got the idea. This is what we got to do. When we're having a big investigation, we just got to hire a food truck.
Yeah, right.
They'll just park outside, and we can have a food truck for when it's investigation time. Go out, get some snacks.
That'd be awesome.
That'd be wonderful. That'd be awesome.
A taco truck. It has to be a taco truck.
Well,
hey, just give me some food, man. Just give this.
Yeah. all of your data review on your recorder is just burnt.
Yeah, it's got.
Tummy's rumbling. It sounds like get out.
Yeah.
I've heard some horrible stomach rumbles, man. Some people.
Oh yeah.
It goes through the entire hallway. They just.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a demon growling.
It's not a demon. It's just my booty.
You ever have, like, when you was like investigating, you ever have like trains mess with you too? Like,
yeah, trains are worse than semi trucks.
Oh my goodness.
The other one is Wi-Fi routers.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because here's one that's really annoying. So if you go to the Hinsdale house,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys have ever been there or seen it or whatever. It's super famous, big.
Yeah, I've seen it on TV. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So throughout that entire house, there are little cameras so that after your investigation, if you didn't have video equipment, you can purchase the video from all the rooms for your night.
Oh.
The problem is there's a router downstairs and all those cameras are wireless. So all day long, they're just, as they're videotaping, they're sending this constant stream of EMF. So if you use an EMF meter in the Hinsdale house, you are completely wasting your time because that thing will go off almost continuous. Matter of fact, on that one, when I did the investigation there with my board, I pretty much just ignored the EMF data. It was like a seismograph, and it never stopped. And it's because you got 10 cameras sending their Wi-Fi packets constantly in a stream 24/7.
Wow.
Yep.
So you can't use an EMF meter in there and have it mean anything because
Wow.
there's EMF through the whole building all the time.
Wow,
So-
I did not. Wow,
I'll
that's-
never forget when I first found that out because I noticed a correlation when cameras were activating. Because there's this one location where the cameras click every time you go by them. It doesn't. They just try to catch stuff.
They're motion sensitive.
Yeah, they're motion sensitive, and every time that
The problem
clicks,
is they wake up and they go to send their data back.
Yep.
Now you get this big burst of EMF,
yep,
and because you don't know what's going on, you just see your meter just randomly start going off, and you're like, "Oh man, I got activity. Something's going on," you know.
yeah,
Right.
Now, if I use my Ghost CB thing where it's got the EMF wand so you can listen live, you can hear the and you know, oh, yep, there's a Wi-Fi router. Ignore all your EMF readings. Let's keep moving.
yep, yep.
How did you, I mean, so like, what did you use to like instead of the EMF meter and everything? What else did you use in that house to?
Your 5 senses, maybe a cat ball or two.
Okay.
Temperature measurements. I don't know. I mean, when you knock EMF out of it, you know, I had it tempted. I was almost tempted to just go down there, and the very first thing is just pull the mains.
Yeah.
Kill power to the whole building. There's no EMF in it. It's dark. You're good to go. And there's no cameras because I don't get buy their $100 for their whatever it is for their video anyway. I'm sure they would have freaked out because they probably sit there and watch while you're investigating, make sure you're not destroying the place. I don't know. But it was tempting.
Well, and see, it
Yeah,
starts
it was tearing
out
up my data bad.
and see that starts out like wholeheartedly. You know, if you think about it, you think, oh, okay, some people don't have all that equipment. They might want to get the video of their investigation, and they don't realize that that's actually hurting you sometimes.
Yeah, because every single room in that house has at least one, and some have 2 or 3 cameras.
Yeah.
And they all go Wi-Fi to an internet connection that goes on out so that, you know, not only can the owners monitor the house remotely, you know, in case of vandalism or whatever, but also they record your thing so you can purchase it as a file or whatever after the point.
Yeah.
But it totally destroys your EMF data, you know, because those cameras have pretty strong antennas, and they're all over in the rooms right in the same room with you. So, you know.
Wow.
And it really depends on the location as well and their spacing. Because I mean, I've been to some where it doesn't affect the equipment as bad as others. Some are absolutely cramped and they've got like 90 cameras. But if you know, it's just all about testing and being aware
now
that
if
it's a
they wanted to
possibility.
do that and still have it be correct, they could purchase Ethernet cameras instead of Wi-Fi cameras. Not only would they be better quality probably, but you can run, you know, and you got to run some cable, but then you would have no EMF, but you'd still have your cameras and you could still record it, et cetera, et cetera. But, you know, so many of these places have their free Wi-Fi or whatever, you know, or it's just the person that forgets to put their phone in airplane mode and happens to set their phone down. Because this is another one that happens. People go on location and they're like, oh, I'm going to live stream this tonight, guys. Check this out. And so they're walking around holding the phone in one hand and their EMF meter and their other stuff in the other, and they're streaming.
Yeah.
Well, there's a constant flow of EMF coming off that phone, every packet of video that it's sending in sound.
Yep.
And so that EMF meter, it is going crazy, and they're like, oh, man, we got so much activity tonight. We're doing great. So, yeah, you do. How about if you stop streaming and see how long the camera goes?
Yeah.
Right.
I
See
love
how
that you
long
brought
the
that up.
EMF meter keeps going.
I love that you brought that up because a lot of people don't know the distance that actually affects. So they're like, oh, I'm more than 6 feet away from the EMF meter with my phone. And I'm like, but strangely, when you're holding your phone at this angle, it's not setting it off. And then the minute you turn slightly this direction.
It's because the antennas in the phones are directional.
Right. But they're like, but I'm more than 6 feet away from it.
It
so
don't
it's
matter.
definitely not me. And I'm like, no, because like I could go, like Horridge House has 2 bedrooms upstairs, and my phone in one room can affect it in the other room. And it's like, it definitely reaches much further than that short
Well, of
distance.
course. I mean, it reaches miles to the nearest cell tower, and the cell tower hears it. So if it goes that far, I mean, it gets weaker by the inverse square. I mean, twice the distance is a quarter the strength. But
Right.
still, if that antenna of the phone, like she said, is pointed at the right direction for it to be beaming right towards your EMF meter, it will set it
Yep.
off.
Yep.
Well, here's another important thing to bring up about debunking, right? Not just the equipment and the location, but when you start bringing this stuff up, you are also then challenging people's proof or their evidence.
Correct.
In a way. And that has different reactions in each individual. Some people will get very defensive when you start debunking their stuff and trying to just add to their findings to make it more reliable. You're not trying to take it away from them, but they'll start saying things like Kat mentioned. Oh, well, I was 6 feet away, or I wasn't at that angle, and I swear, and I know, and I did do this and that, and some people you cannot challenge at all. They're not open to it at all, and you just anger
painful.
them. And that's sad because that affects the whole field. We're supposed to be in this all together. It's supposed to be more of a unit, a united front, instead of everybody trying to get the best thing that they can and not trying to think about it logically. And I don't mean logic it to death to the point where everything is nothing, but
Well, and that's
part
of the reason that a lot of times I'll do the automated investigation. I'll set up the stuff in there. I'll tell it to play the pick a random PowerPoint presentation, play it every random number of minutes, and then just leave, go to the bar, chill, hang out, come back 4 or 5 hours later and see what the investigation had, because there's no people, there's no anything. So whatever it is, if it's man-made, it's probably going to be cyclical and you'll understand it. But if you're starting to get spikes and things just randomly out of nowhere and nobody's even at the location, it's locked up and you're gone, then that's a whole lot more, strong than if there's 6 people wandering around in a little tiny house,
Yeah.
So what place have you successfully done that at, where you've had interactions in a non-person?
I've done. We had some stuff on the ship from that way where we basically said, okay, this section of the ship we're just not going because the board's down there and it's recording. It was down in the engine room.
Yeah.
I've done a couple little mom and pop bars and restaurants. Because they're like, yeah, we're losing employees because there's weird shit happening and we don't know what's going on and people are freaking out and they're quitting.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, well, so I go in there and I put in stuff, and usually what I find is there's an absolutely massive amount of EMF coming from something, a big refrigerator, a big ceiling fan, something. And of course, there's documented medical research papers written on EMF affecting people, making them feel like they're feeling things, hearing things, like they're being watched. All these kind of things happen naturally when a large EMF field disturbs your brain. Well, if you work in a kitchen and there's this great big freezer right there and that compressor's right above the ceiling and you're standing under it for 8 hours a day and now you feel like people are watching you, you feel like, you're paranoid.
Yep.
It's probably most likely there's no ghosts there, but there is a problem. There's some EMF that probably should be shielded, or that compressor should be moved, or people should have their work area in a different spot, something.
And I can prove that. I have these massive EM pumps that we used to call the ghost feeders. And
I remember those.
You remember those? I have like 3 or 4
yeah.
of them now, and we put them out because they've worked over time in supplying things with massive amounts of energy, right? But if you put those all together in a room and you leave them on for like an hour, you can feel the difference in the room.
Correct.
You could come into the room and go, oh my goodness. But
pretty much anything with a large electric motor that's not really well grounded, typical of freezers, pumps, things like that. They're a big contributor to that. And especially in industrial places, because I've done some businesses, machine shops and things that say they're having all kinds of weird stuff. Well, you take the meter in there and the thing is reading about 40 times the normal rate and it's almost continuous. It's like, no, you don't got ghosts. You need an electrician. You got to get some better grounding in here, and you guys got to do some work. But
Yeah,
don't know.
you run into that a lot when you do like the personal stuff. If you ever do like in the beginning when I was starting out, we used to do residences, like actual home calls.
Yep.
Yeah,
And it was
yeah,
always something like that. We would be able to debunk it to a point in someone's home. It would be their air conditioner, their refrigerator,
refrigerators, air conditioners,
yeah,
furnaces.
some duct that they were sitting under when it happened, and
Yep.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's incredible to me. I mean, because you're right. I mean, I've experienced that, the EMF thing and everything, but I don't think I've ever had it to where, you notice it so badly that does it make you almost like delusional? Like,
Well, it just it gives you this feeling like there's something in the room with you, but you don't know what it is and where it's at. And of course, you start getting paranoid and looking around. You start seeing shadows and things, and your own mind goes, and then you leave, and of course, you're out of the EMF now, and you feel just fine, and you're good to go. Some people even get mild nausea, etc.
Yep.
So if you get a whole bunch of investigators that are all getting nauseous at the same time, it's time to do some heavy-duty EMF investigating.
See, what we were doing at the time was a specific experiment for that room at that location. And then right after we pumped that room full of energy, we did an Estes session, and multiple people got touched. We have pictures of bruises and evidence of that going on. So we kind of, I put all the other stuff to the side, like the nauseous feelings or like the visuals.
Yeah.
But honestly, if you give whatever is going on in this other existence enough energy to work with, sometimes that's when you get the scratches, the touches, and the knocks.
Sure, yeah.
And hardcore,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and even the sensor board has an EMF pump built right into it.
Yeah.
And now it's smart. It does the pump, and then it does the reading, and then it does the pump, and it does the reading, because otherwise it would just be off the scale all the time from the EMF from its own self.
That's what she said. No.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, God.
Poor cat.
I couldn't help it.
I didn't say it.
It does the pump, guys. You'll never look at your EM pumps the same.
Yeah. So, I mean, the biggest thing is, the best thing to do is, if the people at the location will allow you to, just go down and pull the main and just let the entire building go dead, because that gets rid of all the air conditioners and the fridges. Just remember, make sure you turn it back on before you leave. But if you're getting stuff when there's no power on at all in the building, there's a whole lot more to it than if you're getting stuff when there's a full house running normal.
Right.
So you just got to really pay attention to that.
Mm-hmm. Right. And that's the thing, like, especially in the wintertime when you investigate, sometimes, you don't want to be cold. I mean, in some of the places, those things go off to keep you warm.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
Keep you company. But
keep you company.
Well, and the other one is the little walkie-talkies. A lot of times, if it's a big building and it's a large group, they'll have a whole bunch of those little handheld family band radios or whatever to communicate or to do their Estes method. Well, the great thing about that is it lets you have the person be in the other room and still talk to them. But the bad thing about it is every time you push the button to send a message, you'll see spikes all over on the EMF spectrum. And so it's like, you're trying to do the Estes method and they keep keying up the radio and saying, yep, I heard this word. Yeah, I heard this word.
Mm.
But every time they key the mic, all the EMF meters in the room are like, whoa, what's going on? Same thing with cat balls. You can key up a radio next to the cat ball and immediately go off almost every time. So there's so much invisible stuff that's not ghosts that gets you, and that's the trouble.
Right.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
No, I'm just sitting there thinking. So the best way to do things. I mean.
Yeah, if you had an Estes method, if you want to do it without the radios, just run a long mic cable and put the microphone next to the person with a cable. Basically, anything with cables is pretty well shielded, and you'll be good to go. If you need to do internet or whatever, and you want to live stream, plug your laptop into the physical Ethernet cable and live stream it. It's fine, because when it's in the cable, it's shielded. Same thing with, pretty much anything else, microphone cable or whatever. You can put microphones and cameras all over a house as long as they're permanently cabled ones, not Wi-Fi ones.
Yeah.
It's the Wi-Fi signals and the Bluetooth signals that are tripping all the meters. Now, you can also build filters for some of the EMF meters to knock out everything above a certain frequency, and that helps a lot. And I've modified a couple random different people's meters because they're complaining that every time they use their cell phone, it goes off. Well, I'll put the signal in, and then they're like, well, I think you broke it. It just doesn't do anything anymore.
Yeah.
It doesn't ever go off. It's like, well, it's because the reasons it was going off before, it had nothing to do with ghosts. Sorry.
Well,
Mhm.
and you
then
gotta
they didn't like that.
And you got to remember, too, the people that are making some of this equipment, don't just trust them right out. They're going to make them more sensitive so that you're getting results. Like Shane was just saying,
Yeah.
as soon as you modify something that stops getting results, people hate you for it. You know what I mean?
Yes,
So it's
that's
like,
the problem. So I quit doing it.
damned
I was
if you
whatever,
do.
man. If you
Yeah.
do you, if you're making a show, it's for entertainment purposes, go for it.
yeah,
Mhm.
it's a damned if you
Right.
do, damned if you don't kind of thing. But I mean,
Yeah.
the point of this episode was to just get a little bit of knowledge out there, make people think, and just know. Because I've been with groups before or done solos where I joined in with other groups where nobody tests anything and everything is paranormal. And if you say anything different, you'll never hear from them again. You're that guy,
Yep.
Nico is that guy.
I am that guy.
Oh wait,
I'm that guy.
Kat gets on me
I
all the
open my
time.
mouth.
She's like, Nico, do not science everything to death. You are
Yeah.
No, I've never said that. I like the data.
like
I like
earlier
that.
this week. You walked up to me and you said that I'm kind of intuitive as well, and I was like, oh man.
Mhm.
Yep.
Hey. No, I totally like the science part, data part. I mean, sometimes science proves.
Correct. That's the whole idea. Because if you can put numbers to it, and video and numbers and audio and things that all happened at the same time, and you don't see any other cyclical type things happening, like things turning on and off regular intervals or whatever, you have a lot more strong evidence. Plus, if you want to show somebody, you can be like, okay, there's the numbers, here's the statistics,
Yeah.
here's the video, here's the audio. You
Mhm.
tell me what you think.
Yeah.
You've got 10 times what just the person said, well, I thought I felt something weird in that room, You've got way more, I don't know, evidence, I should say.
But like, you know what I mean, Shane. When you say something, you have to be careful with what you say.
Oh,
and the
obviously,
topics you bring
I
up.
get burned all the time
Yeah.
because I'm always running my jaw. I don't care.
You can feel the whole energy of the room change when you're the ruiner.
I'm sure my
You know what I
will
mean?
be in flames after this.
Because some people are so excited about what they got, and then you're just the ruiner in the room.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, that's true. People be tripping.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
How dare you?
They
You just
do.
don't believe. The amount of times I heard the "you just don't believe" line when I was first starting out, I was like, no, I do believe. I'm trying to make it better. I do believe, or I wouldn't be here.
Hey,
All right, well, I'm going to have to bail out, guys.
All right,
'cause
brother. Yeah, we're coming.
My
Oh,
next
yeah.
one is right immediately.
I lost track of
So-
time. Hey, thank you, Shane, for being here.
Hey, no
and
problem.
We'll
It's
see
been
ya.
a great show.
Yeah.
Catch you again.
All right, buddy.
See you guys.
Peace
Yeah.
out.
Share the link.
Yeah, I will do.
Yeah, guys, after you're done listening here in a couple of minutes, please check out Shane's podcast. He does with Studio 6 Paranormal. They're awesome. They always do great shows as well. And
okay.
anything else you guys want to add before we wrap this up? Because we are at the end of our time here. And
Wow, that was quick.
I lost track of time, man. I didn't realize it. If Shane didn't say anything, I would have just kept talking. And then Shay would have been like, hey, get off air. You're over.
Uh-oh. I had a change of, heart on what I wanted to, choose for our next, episode. And I was thinking, trigger objects.
Yeah. That's what we're going to be talking about next week. Everybody kind of picked a topic. Shane obviously wanted to talk about debunking. And next week, Michael would like to talk about trigger objects. And maybe we can talk about theories behind, what they're using, why, how trigger objects work, and then what goes into building them as well, because I've been building them for a while, and I've recently gotten back into it. So we'll see.
I'm down for that. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, my friend. And Kat, you have anything you want to add before we check out?
And I'm glad to be a part of this and looking forward to the next one because I got a lot to say on trigger objects.
Well, I'm so excited for it too.
I bet you do too, with all them dials and stuff in there that you got.
And you know what, guys? I couldn't ask for a better group. I'm just so thankful that you guys are here, and everyone who was listening live tonight, thank you for tuning in. And I was kind of trying to keep up and respond as I could. For the people who are listening later, thank you as well. And we will see you guys next month. Our next episode is November 26th, so please stay tuned for that, and we'll let you know when it's coming up. Have a good night, guys.